Yeah, I'm doing an MLB recap video, even though I said I wasn't going to do any more videos about baseball. One thing I didn't do today is I didn't make a single wager or really follow a game other than following what the algorithm did because I tell everyone that what you're supposed to do here is wager on teams where the MxP factor is over 20. Well, when all said and done and all the lineups got in here, there were 8 of these games. And it looks like those games finished 6-2. Okay. Now, this is what you're looking at in the Google sheet. There's another version, which is the Excel file that has all the formulas that do the projections. And that has a look at the day's profit right here, even though there's still a Mets game going on. So let's remove the Mets game because we don't know what's going to happen there. This is actually 11-3, even though the Google sheet is 10-4 because it has Arizona and Washington flipped. But I'm gonna make sense, and I'm gonna slow down and make some sense here in a minute. You don't have to think too much. Stuff at the bottom and games that do not have an MxP factor over 20 are essentially toss-up games. And that means that you could play them if you want, but don't expect to win them on a regular basis because they show up more of a pattern of random noise, meaning sometimes they win, sometimes they don't. It's not all that reliable. So because of that very fact, that this is what I've been trying to do with the algorithm for a while, and finally kind of I'm happy with what it's doing right now, which is I say, well, okay, we don't care about games that are under MxP 20, even though when you're looking at them in the Excel file, it is a bit confusing because as we go top down by margin, the MxP factor is actually over here. And so I wrote a little formula over here to make sure that we understand which games we're talking about. They show up as a profit loss right here. And you'll notice that there are a couple of holes here. There are holes right here. It's this Tampa Bay game as a whole, and this Minnesota game as a whole. And you can see that you win one of those games and you don't win the other game. And Minnesota crushes it, but Tampa Bay does not, and Kansas City wins. Now, what's great about the algorithm is that it kind of told you to stop and not include those. And normally you would include Tampa Bay. You might go all the way down, you could even go all the way down to here or something like that. But it tells you to stop. Atlanta is a very weird situation here because you lose that game, but the odds makers had this game as basically the biggest favorite of the day. And so this is just another area where the algorithm, if you're looking top down, even though this game does have an MxP factor, by the way, of only 28, when you have other games with a 67 and a 72 up here, Toronto and the Dodgers, both teams that won, both teams covered, one winning by 4 runs and the other winning by 3 runs. Miami wins by 1 run, okay? But the MxP factor is only 22. St. Louis loses. They lose that game. Atlanta lose that game. But Yankees at a 35 down here win that game. Houston win that game. Minnesota win the game, but it was only 18. At least you'd say this, if you cut it off at 18 and above, you could have kept the Minnesota game. So the point is that you can see that the profit on the games where the MxP was over 20 is 1.84 divided by this here, 8. So it is basically, this is how much money you would have made if you got the same unit on every game, is you would have made 23% on your money. If you would have wagered $8, you'd have $9.84 now. If you wagered $1 on all of those games. So that is a winning day. And it also dodges the landmine of Tampa Bay, where you might have lost. And had you included that game, I can actually change the formula here and say, hey, let's do a revolving MxP factor. Okay, first of all, we have the 20. All right, hold on. The current one is the 20. So we're gonna reference that cell. Actually, we might not be able to do that. I think I have to write it a different way. Well, let's just say for a second, what if we went over 15? Because that would include the Minnesota game. Now all of a sudden you made $2.43 on your $8. Now, well, what if we went above 10? Now we're going to include the Tampa Bay game essentially, but that was an MxP factor of 12. Now it's down to 143 again, 180, which is less. So the long story short of that is MXP factors above 20 are solid because they pick off things like the Yankees and Houston down here by margin and tell you to stay away from Tampa Bay. And even to tell you to stay slightly away from Atlanta at this ridiculous line because the MXP factor is not off the charts like it was for the Dodger game where they did win in the cover. So it's just another day where the algorithm just beats the odds makers. I was checking over the professor. The professor is beating a professor, obviously, as well, beating everybody, and doing exactly what it's programmed to do, which is isolate games with MXP factors over 20 and have them win. And if you took Toronto -1.5 or the Dodgers -1.5, you won. You won. Didn't win if you did it with Miami, but I mean, you start to see, well, MXP factors above 50. Can we do the team -1.5? I mean, let's think about that. We can look at previous days to see if that would have worked. Okay, on a previous day here, MXP's over 50. These teams covered. This one didn't. And this one did. This may be a new thing where the MXP factor is essentially the sliding scale, and how high this number is how much that team's supposed to crush it. And you can just double check here. So I'm really happy what this did today. Of course, I didn't bet. Of course, I didn't make any money because that's just how my life is. But it's funny that things do what they're supposed to do. So if somebody wants to pay me to do this tomorrow, we can do this because I'm not betting right now. Nope. Just gonna sit back and watch. All right. Good luck. I hope all your picks won today.